Hi, I'm Luke Freeman, and I'm here to tell you how you should choose electric-powered vehicles over gas and diesel-powered vehicles. So before I start, I want you to imagine yourself in a world like Pixar's WALL-E, where it's a very barren wasteland caused from pollution, all sorts of pollution, but my main point is the air pollution and how they had to leave the Earth because it was uninhabitable. Um, no one wants that, and a good way to start to change that is by making a transition to electric powered vehicles over gasoline powered vehicles, just because of the sheer emissions that they let out each year. In our everyday lives, gas and diesel powered vehicles make up about 1/5 of the U.S. Global warming pollution, and these emissions caused from these vehicles create greenhouse gases, which creates an ozone layer in the atmosphere, which is what causes global warming, according to Science.com. Also, according to Science.com, gas powered vehicles are a large contributor to air pollution in the US. And a good representation is just a small diesel powered truck, but that's a lot of emissions if you think about it per vehicle. And there's millions and millions of these trucks, big, small, in the middle, everywhere on the road. So, so which leads me to my next point is how to combat the air pollution. And a good representation of this is what LA looked like at the beginning of quarantine, before it all started, before the traffic ended. And there's a lot of smog. You can barely see the skyline, and it's kind of bad. But during quarantine, a photo resurfaced right here of what LA looks like without it, and it's like a totally different city. It looks like one of them's taking on a Nokia, and then one of them's taking on like a Canon, like from now. It's pretty crazy. But that just goes to show how much air pollution can affect the world around us without us even knowing. And that's just from using these gas and diesel powered vehicles all the time. To further prove the point that you should be using electric powered vehicles instead of these gas and diesel ones, in only 1 year, electric powered vehicles can save up to an average of 1.5 million grams of CO2 a year, according to EDF.com. That's a pretty staggering number, if you ask me. And this graph does a really good representation of the cost benefits of having an electric powered vehicle, such as the fuel cost is definitely a big one, because you don't have to pay all that gas. You have to go to charging stations, which are not as much money nearly as gas is, especially the fluctuating gas prices. It's going to stay pretty much the same when you're electrically charging like it's your phone. Another thing that it's very big is the maintenance costs. The maintenance cost is a lot lower than these gas-powered vehicles because there's not a lot of moving parts. It's mostly through the battery and the axles. It's in a gas and diesel powered vehicle. There's a whole engine where there's a bunch of moving parts. There's pistons, and if one thing messes up, it's all done. It can be cost effective depending on what needs to be fixed. And also, like I said before, the CO2 emissions are a lot less, and that should be taken into account as well. Also, 1/3 of the CO2 emissions are produced when the car, are produced when the car is in production. So 2/3 of the emissions that it lets out is when you actually drive the car and own it. So 1/3 of the emissions are out of the way when it's produced. And it takes a lot less energy to produce an electric powered vehicle than a gas powered vehicle. I think it takes 2/3, according to EDF.com, it takes 2/3 more energy to produce a gas powered car rather than an electric powered car. So, to prove my point more, I think electric powered vehicles will greatly benefit air pollution, the combat in air pollution. I mean, this is not the only thing that will help. There's plenty of other things like planes, trains, all that stuff is affecting air pollution. But cars, diesel powered, all that is a lot of cars on the road. And I just think if people start to make that transition to electric powered, it would greatly combat a lot of smog problems and air quality around cities. And I also think by switching to electric powered cars, it's a lot less use of non-renewable use sources that will take forever, to millions of years past our lifetime, to replenish. With the use of electric powered, you're getting it from all different sources. You can get it from non-renewable as well, mostly from renewable, from geothermal, from wind, from solar, water. There's a lot more ways to get electricity, which is the fuel for the car, than it is gasoline or diesel, which is sometimes hard to get, which can cause wars, and there's a lot of tension between that, as you can see in past political debates. But I think the action that needs to be taken for this to actually get put in place is people taking the first step, and just not all at once, but just kind of generally making your switch next time you go to buy a car, next time you are looking car shopping, is focusing on electric powered car, because they are a lot more in the budget than they used to be, and especially as the growing demand for electric powered cars increases. Also, I think another way that would help action is people supporting strictly electric powered companies, like companies that are strictly producing electric powered vehicles, like Tesla. Those companies are doing a huge part into this change. And even Tesla, like this right here, they've done a lot to implement that change, putting charging stations all across the country to really promote this idea. And I do think in the long run it will really greatly benefit air pollution, as well as our money in our pockets